is set to be announced in about a half hour from now. Our Lacey Crisp is live at the Milwaukee County Courthouse with the latest on what we can expect. Hi, Lacey.
Good afternoon. That's right. Shortly after 11 o'clock this morning, the jury told the judge that they have been able to reach a verdict. They began deliberations yesterday afternoon at about 12:30. Court closed at 5 o'clock last night. Then they began deliberations this morning. They are looking to see if 3 officers failed to render aid to Derek Williams. He died in the back of a police squad car after telling officers that he could not breathe. Now, this is an inquest, not a trial, so whatever the jury decides, it's a recommendation to the special prosecutor to see if he will file any charges. Vinny and Melissa?
And Lacey, you had reported earlier this week, help us understand this, you had reported earlier this week that the judge was not going to recommend homicide charges, but I understand misdemeanor charges, if you can explain that for us.
That's right. What the jury is deciding is on a misdemeanor charge of failure to render aid. Essentially, what the jury wants to decide is if the officers should or did give help Derek Williams when they knew there would be great bodily harm. It was interesting yesterday during closing, Special Prosecutor Frankie wore both hats, both prosecutor and defense attorney, and so he argued for and against why the jury should decide how they should decide. One of his points was, if the officers gave aid in time, and he said part of the statute is, they gave aid, they gave him CPR. So he argued for and against. It will be interesting to hear what the jury finds.
Lacey, another interesting point here will be this, as you indicated, will ultimately be left up to the special prosecutor. It's a recommendation, as you said. When does the special prosecutor then make that ultimate determination? Do we find out right away today, or does he go back later and say, all right, I'm going to think about what the jury said?
Special Prosecutor Frankie has been very guarded about giving us a whole lot of information about what he plans to do. All indications are that he'll take a little bit of time, probably not a whole lot, but he doesn't have a set timeline. He doesn't have, a 2-week timeline or anything like that in which he has to make the decision. So it's just kind of a wait and see process after this.
All right, Lacey Crisp is live at the courthouse for us. Lacey, thank you. We look forward to your live report on exactly what that verdict is. Now, let's look at some of the things that the jury is considering. As Lacey sort of hinted at here, there are a number of different questions which jurors will be asked to address. Whether the deceased came to his or her death by criminal means, and if so, the specific crimes committed and the name of the person or persons if now having committed those crimes.
Another consideration would be whether the deceased came to his or her death by natural causes, accident, suicide, or an act privileged by law.
Jury also considering this question. The officer intentionally failed to render necessary first aid or make arrangements for necessary first aid for Derek Williams.
And the jury will also consider this question: that bodily harm to Derek Williams resulted from the officer's failure to render or make arrangements for necessary aid.
So again, if you're waiting on a guilty or not guilty verdict, that's not what happens in an inquest. These are all things that the jury will answer those questions, and then, as Lacey said, the special prosecutor will review everything that the jury found and then later issue a decision as to whether or not he thinks criminal charges should be filed against one or any of these officers.